Well, Indiana's already gotten one big receiver out of the transfer portal in Nick Marsh, and they're after another one in Parker Livingstone from Texas, but there seems to be a little drama out of Austin right now.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. We got a little college crossover going for you today. I am Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Brad Kellner, host of Locked On Longhorns, and we appreciate you being here, making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network in the world and making our shows your first listen or your first watch every single day. And Indiana has been busy in the transfer portal, even though they're on a quest to win a national championship, and they're trying to reload on both sides of the football. Today, we talk about receiver, because as great as Nick Marsh is from Michigan State, the Hoosiers are not done, and they have their sights set on Parker Livingstone, who visited this past weekend, the freshman Texas wide receiver. But Brad, seems to be a little drama going on around this situation. He says one thing, Texas says another. Can you clear up what's going on with the star wide receiver out of Texas?
Yeah, Jacob, it was a bit of a stunner for Longhorn fans when it was announced that Parker Livingstone was going to enter the transfer portal. It happened a day after Texas beat Michigan in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl on New Year's Eve. So Longhorn fans were kind of riding high after that win, and everyone got brought back down to earth with the sudden announcement of Parker Livingstone's transfer. I mean, there were no tea leaves pointing to this being a possibility. He was a fan favorite. He was a pretty big part of the Texas passing game in 2025. And then all of a sudden, we hear that he's leaving. So that came as a big surprise. And then late last week, Parker Livingstone released a statement on social media where it kind of insinuated that the decision was out of his control. And people took that as, oh my gosh, did Texas kick Parker Livingstone out? Did they tell him they didn't want him back in 2026? What's the deal? And a bunch of national reporters kind of ran with that story. And it's like, oh, here's the bad side of NIL, is that schools are now kicking players to the curb. Well, people who actually cover Texas found out that no, Livingstone was in fact offered a pretty good six-figure NIL deal to come back, but he wanted more money. So as is the case with the majority of guys who enter the portal, they're leaving for money and or opportunity. I think Livingstone's case, it's a little bit of both, right? Talked about the money, but also, Texas has Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley back, two of their top receivers from 2025. And it's no secret the Longhorns are also in the market for another wide receiver. Cam Coleman, the top-ranked player in the portal, has been linked to Texas a lot. So, at best, maybe Livingstone would have been fourth on the depth chart for Texas. Now, he was fourth on the depth chart this year and played a lot, but maybe part of it's about opportunities too, and he feels like he can get more chance to play somewhere else. But yeah, the drama, he kind of insinuated that Texas was kicking him out, but that was quickly debunked by people who cover the team. This just sort of feels like, Jacob, just your run-of-the-mill, ordinary transfer story at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Everybody took it and ran with it, right? It was like, oh my God, what a horrible situation. How dare Texas do that? And then folks like yourself and others, they were like, oh, hold on just a second, pump the brakes here. And who knows what the full 100% true story is, right? Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a side. And nowadays, unfortunately, everybody feels like they're in the wrong. But hopefully we can get past the drama part of this situation, right? And look, Parker Livingstone, and that is how you pronounce it, by the way, he is leaving Texas. He is in the transfer portal, and he is looking for a new home. And Indiana is one of those possibilities. And so what can he tell us about the 6'4", 190-pound freshman rising sophomore, had 6 touchdowns on the year, a little over 500 yards. You said he was a little lower on the depth chart, but not bad numbers for a guy who's third or the fourth option at Texas.
Yeah, talented player, right? Redshirt freshman, didn't play hardly at all his first season on campus, but kind of burst on the scene, had a couple of catches and a touchdown, the only touchdown Texas scored in their season opening loss to Ohio State, and just kind of was a solid part of the offense throughout the course of the season. An interesting story. He was a pretty highly touted recruit in high school, but he broke his foot in his second game of his senior season. So that kind of lowered him on a lot of recruiting rankings, and a lot of teams who had offered him kind of pulled their scholarship offers. Texas stayed the course. They toughed it out, ended up getting Parker Livingstone. And again, his true freshman season didn't play a lot, was buried on the depth chart, but also was still kind of recovering from that foot injury, and then had a really good year this year. 6'4", 190 pounds, has that catch radius, was a track star in high school, so he has pretty good speed as well. A pretty reliable threat, a guy who was roommates with Arch Manning, very well liked and respected on the team. It was part of the reason why it was such a surprise that he left, right? Everyone assumed with Arch coming back that Livingston was coming back as well. But no, a solid weapon on the outside. Not the most athletic guy in the world, but fast, can get open, can learn the offense quickly. Did have a couple of drop issues this year. And Jacob, I'm a believer that all drops aren't created the same, right? So when I say drop issues, if the ball was thrown at Parker Livingstone, he would catch him. But if they were, contested catches, you'd have to go up and jump for it. You'd have to go outside of your body, outside of your catch radius to make a play. He wouldn't always make them. He struggled with those. And they're considered drops because he was able to get hands on those. But that's one part of his game that has to clean up. So he's far from a finished product. Understandable considering he just finished his redshirt freshman year. But yeah, to put up those numbers in an inconsistent Texas passing game, despite some of the other options the Longhorns had on the outside, there's a lot to like about Parker Livingstone. And you see why schools like Indiana are so interested in getting him on campus for a visit.
It's a wild thought that receivers nowadays would leave a school quarterbacked by Arch Manning, who I know had his ups and downs, but was getting better down the stretch. And I think it is due for a big season in Texas next season. But for Indiana, right, going after several receivers, losing guys like Elijah Surratt, we expect to lose Omar Cooper. That is still up in the air as of this point. We don't know. You bring in Nick Marsh, but Parker Livingstone would be such a big addition to the receiver room because it's an attractive place because of what the Hoosier offense is doing, right? They light it up. They'll hang 60 on just about anybody. And now Josh Hoover is the one throwing the football next season in Bloomington. So for a guy like Parker Livingstone, it's an attractive place to go. And it sounds like Texas fans would rather see him in Bloomington than in Norman, right? Seems like it's Indiana or Oklahoma battling it out right now, according to your sources, huh?
Oh, man, what a world we live in, right? Where Indiana and Oklahoma are fighting for the same football recruit. I know that's music to your ears and music to every Hoosiers fan's ears out there. I love it, baby. What a time to be alive for IU fans. And it's funny, I have a cousin who's a student at Indiana right now, Jacob.
Okay.
And she's locked in. She goes to every football game, and she has for all 3 years that she's been there. And I asked about basketball. I'm like, do they even go to basketball games? She's like, yeah, kind of, but not really. It's not the cool thing to do. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's not the Indiana I know. Wow. But that's not what you asked. Yeah, it's interesting. So Parker Livingstone, I was told yesterday, Jacob, that he wanted to go to Oklahoma out of high school. I think Oklahoma was one of those schools that originally offered Livingstone, but they either pulled the offer or just totally stopped recruiting Livingstone after his foot injury in his senior year. And again, Texas stayed the course while a lot of other teams, Oklahoma included, kind of looked at other options. So I think that's the fear right now, if you're an Indiana fan, is that, Livingstone's from the DFW Metroplex. Oklahoma has historically recruited incredibly well there. And we're talking about a guy who, at least according to somebody I talked to, wanted to go there out of high school, just didn't really get the opportunity to do so. So, Indiana's fighting that. They're fighting the fact that Oklahoma's a little bit closer to home.
Sure.
But again, Indiana's a great football program. I like Josh Hoover more than John Mateer, who's coming back to play quarterback at OU. Indiana's got money and resources. There's a clear investment into the program right now. So I think there's a good chance that he ends up at IU. But yeah, there's maybe an uphill battle. Honestly, if you asked me, Jacob, you didn't. But if you asked me, I would say OU probably should be considered a slight favorite here. But you know how it works in NIL. That could all change at the drop of a hat.
It changes by the second, my man. You know that just as much as I do. Brad Kellner of Locked On Longhorns joining us to give the inside scoop on Parker Livingstone. See where he ends up. We're hoping it's in Bloomington, but you just never know in this transfer portal era. Brad, it's great to talk to you, my friend. We appreciate the insight.
Hey, we're hoping it's in Bloomington too, Jacob. Thanks for the time, my man.
All right, coming up on this Locked On Hoosiers episode, we continue talking the transfer portal, and we bring in another guy from the Locked On Podcast Network, buddy of mine, Christian Rauh. We've talked to him before from Locked On Kansas State about two of the major edge players that the Hoosiers brought in on defense and why it might just be one of the nastiest defensive fronts in college football. That is next. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions that you forgot about, bills that keep piling up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down all those hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I was shocked when I signed up for Rocket Money, and I did this months ago last year because I realized, hey, there's some dollars that are slipping through that I just didn't really know where they were going. I genuinely was surprised and shocked to see I was still paying for this, I was still paying for that, and money was being taken here and there, and I was spending more than I thought I was too, and it has saved me hundreds, really. And so you think, nah, I'm fine. Maybe I'm too good for this. I know my money. I know my finances. I was that person too. But then I signed up for Rocket Money and it really did blow me away. So look, let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. It's a new year. It can be a new you, and it can be a richer you as well. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on-college. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. We continue on here on Locked On Hoosiers, talking more transfer portal news. I'm your man, Jacob Goins, and I brought in a guy who's an expert on a couple of the players that Indiana has brought in. It's our buddy Christian Rauh from Locked On Kansas State, as Indiana has brought in a couple of your players from Manhattan, my friend, both of them on the defensive end, kind of that edge position. Two guys that I have described are built like refrigerators, man, just monsters on the defensive front, and Indiana went and snagged two of them there from Kansas State.
Yeah, and they're exciting players too. These are not players that I wanted to leave Kansas State. Obviously, with the coaching change happening in Manhattan, we're losing a couple key defensive players, and it's easy to say that you got two of the three best defensive players that Kansas State had on the roster last year. Wow. Maybe with the exception of Austin Romaine, who went to Texas Tech, would be the only exception, but easily two of the best three defensive players for Kansas State last season going to Indiana.
And want to talk about them in particular because Indiana's defensive end, kind of defensive edge position, I've talked about it several times. You're losing some of the best players that IU has ever seen at those positions due to eligibility in the NFL draft and things like that. So the Hoosiers had to go and fill this spot, and they did so in 3 or 4 days' time. A guy from Notre Dame, just throwing him out there quickly, Joshua Burnham, who is very experienced, played at Notre Dame for several years. He's coming in along with the two guys from Kansas State, and I will admit I have struggled with their names. I've listened to it. I've said them a ton of times, and I hope that I'm getting them properly. Chiddi Obiazor, right, the edge from Kansas State, who we've talked about on the show a couple of times, with 3 years of experience there at Kansas State. You also have Tobi Osunsanmi, who is coming in for Indiana as well. Both similar in their build, similar in their style, it seems like, from what I can see on film. But what can you tell us about those two guys and what they're bringing to Bloomington?
Yeah, they're absolute studs. And what you mentioned, just from what I've seen from the college football playoffs and stuff, just as a fan of college football, I think these are like perfect fits for some of your guys that are going to lose eligibility, like a Daly, like a Wyatt. I think these are your perfect kind of guys that are going to really fit that bill. Osunsanmi is amazing. I mean, if it wasn't for his injury in the second half of the season, I think you're talking about him potentially being a double-digit sack guy in 2025. Wow. He started the season very strong with 4 sacks before he got injured. And he was on that cusp last year too. He really stepped up last season. He's a powerhouse. He is not afraid to be quick off the line as well. He is a pass rusher. I think he has the opportunity to be like the dude for Indiana on the edge in 2025. Chiddi, I think, is good too. I'm going to call him 1B just for this conversation. I think that he is a guy that's a great role player. I think he's one that you want to rotate in. But if you're talking about who the key is with these two, Osunsanmi is the guy, man. He really is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say, and again, I've watched their film, but you watched every snap of Kansas State football this past season. I mean, would you say that they're more see ball, get ball? Are they more kind of stay in their lane? Is it more just go where the play is going? How would you describe the way that they react and act on every single play?
They are all about getting the ball back to the offense. That is the mentality that Kansas State's defense, in the entire last couple seasons over former defensive coordinator Joe Klannerman had, and was instilled in these guys. They used what was called a mob mentality, mind on ball, where every single one of your plays, every single one of your reactions, your attitudes was about getting the ball back to the offense at any means necessary. So these guys are going to continue to carry that into Indiana.
And I think that's how I know that's how Indiana plays. I mean, that's why they're one of the best and nastiest defenses in all of college football. You've seen it throughout their playoff run. They let guys play pretty freely, right? And the idea that if you do your job and you don't overcommit and things like that, it seems like Indiana, you can play kind of however you want to. And I think both of these guys fit that bill. I think that's why Indiana went after them, because they're highly rated. They're not the highest rated in the transfer portal by any means, but Indiana doesn't care about that. And that's where they've made their hay for so long. And I've also noticed from both of these guys that when they get somebody in their grasp, they don't get away. People don't break tackles from these guys very often, and they're so quick off the line, and they'll bully somebody through there. I mean, I'm really impressed with just the physicality of these guys. And now P4 team to P4 team, I'm not concerned about their transition to Indiana at all.
No, and I think you can look at this more than just the one-dimensional pass rush for each of these players. I think you can look at it as a success on the run game too. And I know Indiana's done a really good job at defending the run. And the interior defensive line in Indiana, I think obviously you can say it was a lot better than what Kansas State's was in 2025. Kansas State had some great defensive linemen, but they were very top heavy. So when you rotate it out, you would get some, not the same type of, performance, if you will. And these guys still had the opportunity to stop the run, do a very good job with that. And then if you have, an Osunsanmi or a Chiddi Obiazor with these defensive tackles that Indiana is bringing in, with this type that Kirk Cignetti continues to do, I mean, you guys are turning into a portal powerhouse. It's incredible. If you do that, like I said, I think you can get a guy like Tobi Osunsanmi do a double-digit sack, and that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, if you're talking potentially 12, 13 sacks for Osunsanmi if he has a dedicated interior defensive line next to him.
And remind me what the injury was again that took him out for the year. What was it? Because he played 3 or 4 games, right? And then was out for the year.
Yeah, he was out for 4 games. I can't remember the injury off the top of my head.
Okay.
I want to say
because I haven't seen it advertised.
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was lower body, and Chris kind of made it seem like it was kind of. Former head coach of Kansas State wanted to make it seem like it was minor initially, and then they shut it down when kind of the season kind of went astray. That happened to multiple key defensive players for Kansas State. So I don't think it was as serious as what it seems like when you're looking at paper when you say, oh, he missed the whole half of a season. I think it was the fact that he shut him down because Kansas State's season kind of went astray.
I got you. Okay, so hopefully there's no concern with him being hung up in terms of spring ball and summer workouts, and then, of course, into fall ball as well, several months between now and then. And so, Christian, I appreciate you hopping on here, my man. Anybody else on that Kansas State team we need to know about? Anybody else who wants to come hang out in Bloomington and compete for national championships, my man?
I mean, I tell you what, there's a couple key Kansas State players still in the portal. I know you just went and got Nick Marsh, but Jace Brown's still out there. Brown's
what
out
a
there
wild
right now,
sequence that is.
Yeah, interesting.
I see he was on LSU
stuff.
visit. Did I see that? He was visiting LSU last time I looked with Sam Levitt, I think, right? Is that correct? Did I see that?
He's a Florida guy, and he didn't even take one Florida visit. Surprised the heck out of me, man. So we'll see where he goes. Christian
Rauh of Locked On Kansas State. Be sure you go and check him out. He does incredible work covering all things Kansas State, athletics, football, basketball, you name it. He's got it. He's one of the reasons that we are the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. So go check him out, man. I appreciate you hopping on here as always, brother.
Anytime, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, final segment on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers as we talk a little Indiana basketball as they head on the road tomorrow to take on the Maryland Terrapins. And Hoosiers trying to improve on their Big Ten record, now 2-1, thanks to the Sunday evening win over Washington. Statistically, it might be your best win of the year, which says more about your resume than it does anything else, but that's okay. We take wins, especially in conference play, against anybody, anytime, anywhere. But that's what I want to hit on in this matchup with Maryland tomorrow, because by the numbers, let's just say it like it is. Maryland sucks, okay? Maryland is a bad basketball team. And Indiana, on any given day, is a better team than Maryland. Is Indiana a national title favorite, a Big Ten favorite, or even going to be favored in most of their games this season? No. But you will be in this game because you are the better team on both ends of the floor. And I'm being real when I say that. You're better offensively by a lot. And I think you are better defensively than this Maryland team, who actually isn't bad on that end of the floor. When you look at Maryland and you kind of dive in to who they are and what they are and kind of how they operate, right? Their wins are fine. They beat Marquette, who, my goodness, they're not good. They beat UNLV, who's fine. And that's pretty much it. They're 7-7 on the year, folks. They lost to Georgetown. They lost to a really good Gonzaga team, a really good Alabama team. Those were back-to-back of the Players Era tournament or the Players Era Festival, rather, out in Las Vegas. They opened up Big Ten play on the road at Iowa, got hammered there. They then had the pleasure of hosting Michigan, and the Wolverines did to them what they've done to everybody. Didn't beat them by 30, though, so Maryland can hang their hats on that. Then they went on the road to Virginia for some reason and took on a top 25 Cavaliers team. That didn't go well. And they also lost to Oregon in the Big Ten restart, 64-54. Maryland is putrid on offense. They don't move the ball. They don't take good shots. They don't run. They're one of the worst tempo teams in the Power 5. They're one of the worst offensive teams in the Power 5. Defensively, they're fine, but they're not great. And those games against big-time opponents, they gave up triple digits 3 times. Gonzaga, Alabama, and Michigan all scored triple digits. And so I see that, and I start diving into it a little bit, and I say, Indiana's a good offensive team. Maybe the Hoosiers can drop a triple digit number on the Terrapins on the road. But then you look into it a little bit more, and 2 of those 3 performances, it was the big men who carried for Gonzaga and for Michigan. Bama has a big man in Diabate. He's kind of hit or miss. Actually, apologies, not Diabate. I believe he left to go to Kentucky. Who's Bama's big man? It's going to bother me now. Who is their big man? They've got a guy. That's who it is. Amari Allen. That's who I'm thinking of. Diabate did leave. He went to Kentucky, didn't he? But in that game, it was the guards. It was LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway who carried the way for the Crimson Tide. My point being, those 3 blowouts where Maryland gave up triple digits, 2 of them were led by big men. And we understand Indiana. We don't really have one of those. We have a couple of big 4s in Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis, but this is a guard-led team. And so Indiana's got to do a couple of things, because diving into the stats, going to our friends over at KenPom, oh goodness, Maryland is just not good. They're ranked 143rd in offense, 81st in defense, and their tempo is 187th in the country. What does that say? What does that mean, Jacob? Tell us how Indiana wins this game. It's very simple. Play your style of offense. If you play the way you did the other night against Washington, which I understand was at home, and we're going to talk about playing away from Assembly Hall in just a moment, you play your game on offense, move the basketball, move without the basketball. You share the basketball. It touches several hands. It hits both sides of the floor. You get back cuts. You get open shots. You will blow Maryland out. Okay, you will absolutely rout them if you shoot the way you're capable of and play offense the correct way. And you also get up and down the floor, especially off of Maryland misses, which they'll have a lot of. They can't hang with you. They can't keep up. The numbers say so. They cannot keep up with you if you run and gun like the Hoosiers love to do. Now, the question is, can you do that on the road? And that is what's concerning about the Hoosiers, because you have played 4 games away from Assembly Hall. That's it. You've played, 2 neutral site, and you've played 2 true road games. Is my math right? Or not even my math. Is my stat right there? I think it is. Marquette was a neutral site game. Minnesota was a road game. Louisville was a neutral site game, and Kentucky was on the road. Do you remember what Indiana's record away from Assembly Hall is? It's not good. It's 1-3. You are 1-3 away from Assembly Hall. Your only win being against Marquette, who is abysmal this year, and that win basically means nothing now. You lost on the road to Minnesota. You lost against Louisville at neutral site, and you lost on the road to Kentucky. There's not a whole lot to go off of for Indiana when they step out of the great walls of Assembly Hall. And you have to go prove that. You have to go earn that. This is a prime example or a prime opportunity to do that. Okay, Maryland is not a good basketball team, but they can beat you because this is P5 basketball. This is Big Ten basketball. And Indiana is the hottest and coldest team, the streakiest team I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Indiana has to earn a win on the road in this game. And the last time, okay, God, I was so dead wrong. The last time Indiana went on the road, let's sit back and put our thinking caps on and look into the past. The last time that Indiana went on the road to a Big Ten team, and I said, all you got to do is play your game. This team is terrible. Just show up, play your game, and take care of business. Do we remember what that game was? I do. I remember. It was Indiana in the Big Ten opener when they played Minnesota. They were coming off a triple-digit play or a triple-digit game where they dropped 100 on Bethune-Cookman. We were feeling good. We were heading to the barn, baby. We were heading to Minnesota. What did you do? You put on your worst offensive performance of the season, and you took your worst loss of the season. And it very well could remain the worst loss of the season as Minnesota is flirting to drop outside of the top 100 of KenPom. That was a bad loss, and it will haunt me forever. You lose this game to Maryland, it's twice as bad, in my opinion. All you got to do is execute on both ends of the floor. Talk defensively. Don't give them open lanes. Don't let them dribble drive. Don't let them rebound the basketball and get second and third opportunities. They don't need it. They need the help. Don't give them the help is what I'm saying. And you've got to get dudes involved. You cannot just go in here and expect Lamar Wilkerson to drop 35. He's capable of doing so, but don't rely on that. Tucker DeVries, it's time to wake up. Sam Alexis, he needs more minutes. Reed Bailey, you got to get a little more aggressive, my man. And can you get big-time buckets from Tatum Connerway, Nick Dorn, Trent Sisley, if he can continue to play well in this game? You are the better basketball team. And let me go ahead and say this as we wrap up today's show. You better win this one. You better win it, because this is one of the few times you're going to get a favorable game where you have not a gimme win by any means, but one that you should absolutely take, because the stretch you're about to go on is absolutely brutal. You are about to run in to 4 straight ranked teams. And not only are they ranked, they're in the top 20 of the AP poll. Nebraska's at 10, Michigan State's at 12, Iowa's at 19, and Michigan is at 2. That one's on the road in Ann Arbor, by the way. That's going to be nasty stuff. You then take a road trip to Rutgers because, every team deserves a game off, right? Then you return home for Purdue, who's ranked 5th in the country if you have not looked. So 5 out of your next 6 games after this will be against ranked teams, all of them in the top 20, half of those inside the top 10. Wins in games like this one against Maryland tomorrow don't come around that often, and you need to take advantage of it. Indiana and Maryland tomorrow, early tip 6:30 on the Big Ten Network. I think Indiana will win. I think they show up and play good enough. We'll see how it goes, and we'll talk about it, of course, and go live on the Locked On Hoosiers YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe wherever you are. Follow us on your audio podcasting platforms. We are back tomorrow with a fun crossover episode. Our first big preview of Indiana and Oregon, the rematch in the Peach Bowl. Our buddy Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks will be joining us on the show. We'll have a full preview for you, one of 2 for this week. So be sure you come back and check that out along with our live show tomorrow night for Indiana basketball as well. We're back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.